everyone. Welcome to another episode of the LitRPG Podcast, episode number 253 of the show, Thanksgiving episode for 2020. I'm Ramon Mejia, here to bring you the latest LitRPG news, reviews, and of course, author interviews. This week I got 7 new reviews for you this week, a ton of LitRPG deals for Black Friday and for Cyber Monday. Before we start any of that, of course, we always try to thank our newest Patreon supporters, and this week we have one new Patreon supporter, Tony Beats. So thank you, Tony, for being such a great supporter. And I immediately thought of many dirty jokes saying your name, which I guess I won't say on the air, since we're trying to be thankful for these things. But I'm sure you've heard plenty of them. However, this week in the show, we're going to be reviewing several releases, including Cashing In Deluxe Voice Book number 2. Also, Berserker, a LitRPG urban fantasy adventure, Apocosmos, book number 1. Also, Dungeon of Chance, Even Odd, a Dungeon & Court novel. I'll be also reviewing the webcomic Live Dungeon. And of course, we have some reviews from our correspondent, Ian Mitchell. And he's actually sending in the reviews for all 3 books in the All Trade series that are available right now. He read them all, and he has reviews and opinions on them all. So there we go. Before we get into that, of course, we're going to go into LitRPG news. And in LitRPG news, we're going to begin with a few stories here. First one is going to be on Michael Scott Earl, the bad boy of LitRPG. He's had a rocky and complicated history with Amazon, which we won't go into. We have other notes in the podcast and whole segments dedicated to that whole situation. But since he's left the platform of Amazon, he's actually done tremendously well. He's actually for me at least, one of the prime examples of somebody turning a negative situation into something super positive and succeeding despite kind of losing the place he used to sell his books. And not just doing okay, but like super well. Like he left the platform and he started crowdfunding his books, audiobooks, artwork, and all the things he put out in his products on Indiegogo and Kickstarter and other crowdfunding platforms. And he did tremendously well, raising tens of thousands of dollars for each campaign, hitting, knocking through extended goals and a bunch of stuff. However, he's also decided to change things again in 2021. He's recently wrote a post saying that he's changing things in 2021. Saying that he's stepping back from crowdfunding to publish and selling his books and audiobooks directly to the public. So, and the reason he's doing it this way is because he found that crowdfunding was limiting the amount of product he could put out, and that's a weird but really good problem to have. Sure, each campaign produced tens, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. But he could only do one at a time, and he had to fulfill all the rewards, despite each individual artwork or audiobook or physical copy, whatever's individual production issues, and requirements. He had to have everything finished before he could start a new crowdfunding campaign. So that really limited the amount of stuff he could actually produce on a yearly basis. And so he decided to do things differently in 2021. He is going to again, essentially sell his ebooks and audiobooks through his own site. And this is a direct quote from his message to his followers. He says, "You guys have been really great fans and support me and buy the books at a higher price point," meaning the Kickstarter and crowdfunding campaign sources. He had higher tiers than the normal ebook sales route. He says, "This indicates that I can raise the price of books and still make enough money to pay the bills. So I'm raising the price of my ebooks to $10 and audiobooks to $15. So there we go. That's only a choice. But remember that his books are sometimes 400 or 500, 600, 700, 800 words, depending on the product. And on the audiobook price is actually still cheaper than every other marketplace, just about. And in this instance, he's just getting more of the money. Instead of using Audible or even Bandcamp, Michael Scott Earl is going to directly sell his audiobooks through BookFunnel. So he can keep 95% of the revenue as opposed to the 85% on Bandcamp and 40% on Audible. And that's absolutely true. Audiobook producers and narrators don't make a ton on Audible, like they make percentage wise. So these other platforms we're hopefully going to work from. And Michael Scott has also sent the message that if you've already purchased the audiobooks through Bandcamp, they should still show up in your book funnel app, as long as he's going to be submitting a spreadsheet showing that the different people from the crowdfunding campaigns have already purchased the audiobooks that he's setting up there, so they should show up in their libraries. And he said he really likes the book funnel app better for as far as like listening to audiobooks. It works functionally better than the Bandcamp app. So this will hopefully be an improvement for listeners and readers. And plus, BookFunnel also will send you the ebooks. You'll have all your products in one place, hopefully. And this is the place where this actually applies to LitRPG readers specifically. He leaves a whole big list of the things he's planning on publishing in 2021, including Star Justice 12 through 14, which should end that series, he says. Tamer 8 is going to go through on Kickstarter. And here it is, Lion Quest, the infamous, well-received LitRPG series that he did for a short period of time, years and years ago. Lion Quest books 4 through 6, which will end the series. He's directly planning to sell through his website, and he's finishing up that series. So we'll have to see and wait how those come out. And I personally plan to purchase them because I enjoy the series, and his series have been, the few books that I've given, 9s out of 10 out of, because they are so well written and they do some great emotional delving and tear jerking and still have action and adventure and good stuff. Okay. And he also says he'll be doing some other projects as well, including SK7 through Indiegogo, a new series in there as well, and either ME3 or SK8, so through Kickstarter or Indiegogo. So he actually still plans to use some of these crowdfunding campaigns, but again, the majority of the things he's doing or producing is going to be direct publishing through his website because he can put out more product. So there you go. Good stuff for Michael Scott plans, and also LitRPG readers who enjoyed that series. Okay, on to LitRPG Black Friday deals. This is a big segment because it's money to save, and a lot of authors have taken the time to put out sales for you guys and some really good deals. This is going to include a Black Friday deal from Audible. Apparently, lasting through November the 30th. There are 27 sci-fi and fantasy audiobooks for sale for $6. If you buy 4 or more, you also get a $5 coupon in for the future. And among those 27 sci-fi and fantasy books includes a couple LitRPG titles, and that includes The Dungeon Fairy and also Shade's First Roll. So a couple good titles if you want to go get them on the cheap. They're available for you there, and we'll link in the show notes. In just delving through sites and author sites and Twitter messages, I've tried to compile a list of Black Friday deals for people, and we're going to start off with Jonathan Brooks giving away a bunch of his first books in series for free. Free. He says it's going to go on Black Friday specifically, so that'll be November the 27th for you folks. And they're going to be available on the main Amazon page, Amazon.com. That includes titles from Dungeon Player, The Song Managed Station Core, The Dungeon World, The Dungeon Fairy, Bio Dungeon, and The Crafter's Dungeons. If you notice, there's a dungeon theme here. Jonathan Brooks is known for his dungeon titles, his dungeon core stories. But again, first books in all those series are out for free on November the 27th. So there you go. Go enjoy them. Go get them all. Also in other deals, we have Apollo's Thorn giving away the first books in 2 of his series, not giving away, but reducing the price. Codename Freedom, Survival Week 1, which is a great series, it really is. It's available for 99 cents. Go grab it. And also the Underworld Collection, the Liberty series, is going to be 99 cents. And this is like probably one of the best deals outside of being free. It's 99 cents. He said not for 1 book, but for 3. The first 3 titles are collected as an omnibus. And they're going to be 99 cents. You're actually getting probably several thousand pages worth of like good story for 99 cents. And it says it's going to be a Black Friday weekend special. So I guess starting on November 27th to Monday. So go grab those when they come out. Also, from Joshua Kern, he actually has 2 different time deals. One that is out currently as of this recording. The Game of Gods will be 99 cents till November 27th, which will be on that Black Friday. And Dungeon Alaria will be 99 cents on Cyber Monday, which will be November the 30th. So, good stories, if you enjoy them, on sale. Also, from Angel Ramon, another Ramon from a different mother. His zombie game books will be out of 99 cents in the US. So there you go, at 99 pence, which I think that P is for UK readers. So there you go. And we have Frank Albino's series are still starting again on Black Friday, running through Sunday night. And they're also available on Kitten Limit, he says. He says his first book in the Murrell saga will be 99 cents. And also the California Mutant Gamelet system called The No Games will be 99 cents as well. So there you go. And Cypher Quest book number 1 is 99 cents through Friday. So it's available now for 99 cents, but that sale will end on Black Friday. So there we go. And last but not least, Stephen Rowland has a special signed paperback of Paths of Villainy for anyone who supports him at the bronze tier, which is $5 a month in the US, or the gold tier internationally during November or December. So he'll send you a signed copy of his Path of Villainy book, special edition, if you support him on Patreon at those different levels. And just organizationally, it makes total sense in the US, which is where Stephen Rowland lives. It's cheaper, so we can just do it at a lower price tier, but internationally it's super expensive to ship things, physical things. And this is not a small book. It'll be a couple pounds. And so international shipping charges are more expensive, which is why he has a slightly higher price tier for this physical book on his Patreon support page. But that'll be patreon.com/SLRowland if you want to go support that author, and his stories are really good. So there you go. Okay, on to our last bit of LitRPG news, and this is sad. It genuinely is. A message went out from an author friend, Taj L, that a member of the community, a LitRPG author, a friend to many, has passed away. Paul Campbell Jr., author of Peaks and Powers 1 and 2, has passed away this last week, actually just the other day. And I'll read you the actual message from his friend and LitRPG brother, Taj L. He says, "I have come bearing sad news. Our writing brother, Paul Campbell Jr., author of Peaks of Power 1 and 2, has passed away today. He was battling double pneumonia since late last week, and after spending 2 nights in the hospital, was sent home to convalesce. During the late afternoon today, he called a friend to complain of having trouble breathing, and an ambulance was called. He was pronounced dead after attempts to resuscitate failed. He is survived by his loving daughter, Aubrey Campbell, age 7. And he also says, at a personal touch there, says, hold the ones you love close and make sure you know you love them. So there's a message from great friend Tajal about a member of the community and author who has passed before his time. So we are sad for him and his family, and give our condolences. And a number of members of the community have already expressed their great sadness at his passing, and they're all in our thoughts. So there you go. Sad bit of news at the end of the LitRPG news section. Okay, on to stuff that is out now. We have things that have come out recently. I haven't had to read them. Here we go. We have the Weaponized Part Number 3 from Richard Declan is out. The Pizza Mage, which is a LitRPG short story. We have a new book series from Simon Archer called I'm the Bad Guy. Second book in the Sigil series, which is The Root Words. So there we go. Not a lot of stuff that's coming out this week that we're not reviewing on the show, I should say. Also in new audiobooks, we have Prime Verse book number 3, The Trial by Magic is out. The second book in the Alchemist series by Vistala Mehenko is out for you to enjoy, called Forest of Desire. The Beastmaster book number 1, Gamified, is out as well. Gauntlet Legends Online, the 5th book in that series, is out. The 4th book in the Light Online series, called Defender, and also True Smithing book number 1, and The First Sorcerer Singularity Online book number 1. War of the Posers book number 4 is out as an audiobook for you guys, and Etheria book number 2, The Golem Crafter, is out as an audiobook. So there we go. On to upcoming LitRPG stuff that's coming out in the near future that we're letting you know about, whether it's planning your reading schedule, your purchasing schedule, or your publication schedule. Sometimes it's as an author, it's good to know what's coming out so you can kind of find a little niche place for yourself where you're not competing necessarily with super big titles. On November 27th, it'll be A Grim Demise and Even Worse Resurrection, Bow Knight series book number 1. On November 27th as well, it'll be Cyphercraft book number 2, Windwalker. On November the 30th, the Thames Realms book number 6, part 2 in that series. December the 1st, it'll be Biomedical Self-Engineering book number 2. December the 1st as well, it'll be Dream State Reality book number 2. Also on December the 1st, it'll be The Broken Battle Mage. Also on December the 1st, there's a lot of titles coming on the first books. The Mischievous Merchant, A Bard's Tale. On December the 2nd, finally, Beta Tester book number 4, DLC. December the 3rd, it'll be The League of Losers book number 2. December the 8th, the 4th and last book, I believe, from in the Rise of Resurgence series called Retribution. On December the 10th, it'll be Project Stellar book number 3, The Tribute. December the 13th, the Dungeon Slayer book number 2 in that series. December the 14th, The Range, The Keeper's Dilemma, which is a new Russian translation story. December the 15th, the Underhill Chronicles book number 2. December the 15th, Dinosaur Warlord book number 3. On December the 16th, it'll be Interworld Network book number 3. December the 17th, the Guild Corps book number 2. December the 18th, the Henchman book number 2. On December 22nd, Bad Guys book number 6. December 28th, it'll be Small Unit Tactics volume 2. On December the 30th, Primacy Online, book number 5. On January the 4th, it'll be Underdog, book number 5. January the 12th, The Warlock Chronicles, book number 2, also known as Reborn Evolution series. January the 18th, Rogue Merchant, book number 3. January the 19th, The Life in Exile, book number 4. January the 20th, The Player Reaches the Top, book number 4. January 26th, the new book from Troy Osgood is going to be Battlegrounds Online, Rifleman. On January the 30th, this is actually a switch. This book was supposed to come out in December. It is switching to January. Spirit of Destiny, the Arkham Online Chronicles, book number 5. January 31st, last on the list, Ascension Legends Online, book number 8. So there we go. All the stuff that I know is coming in the near future. On to new releases and reviews. And first review for the week is going to be Cashing In, Lex Voice book number 2, written by Daniel Scheenhoven. It is 459 pages, $4.99. It's available on Kindle Unlimited. And here's the author's description. Doc Holliday never expected to be in a new world with a new name, but Lady Luck made him an offer he couldn't refuse. Her deal came with perks. He gained the ability to heal, and he could periodically avoid taking damage from any single attack. Lady Luck has assured him that the list of perks would grow over time. The offer also came with a major drawback, however. Doc had to help save the world. While that would be a tall order for anybody, Doc was never one to back down from a challenge. Luckily, pun intended, Doc struck it rich on a mining operation, staking a claim worth more than the whole town of Deep Gulch. Using his new wealth, Doc hired the local clan outdoors to work the claim. He offered them not only better wage, but respect as well. Similarly, he was able to hire the secretary away from what had been the wealthiest men in town, and freed several other town's merchants from the crippling debt they'd been saddled with. All of this has made him a target for the bigwigs who run the town. Doc isn't worried, though, because he has friends to help him along. But will they be able enough to handle Goodman and Sways and the Church of Apoc, which is bound to notice him? Okay, there's also a disclaimer saying that the book contains adult situations, including but not limited to sex, gambling, abuse, drug use, harem, and murder, including graphic sex scenes portraying elements of BDSM. You've been warned. And that's a kind of common disclaimer for most of the Daniel Scheenhoven stuff. And yet, people still complain that they weren't warned, whether it's for some reason, because they didn't read the novel description or the reviews who say that it isn't there. Full disclosure, I received a copy for review. I purchased a copy when it became available. And again, forewarning, there are graphic sections in the story. It's not a major part of it, percentage-wise, but there are scenes of people, enjoying each other in a very story-appropriate way, in that their intimacy on a physical level matches the great intimacy on a story and developmental and character level. And plus, the author just enjoys writing it, and fans like reading it for other fans. And I'll get to that. I skip. They're very skippable for me, but they're also very much like noted. This is, triggered like, oh, this is the start of the sex scene. You can skip to the next little note. This is a slice of life entry into the series. The novel advances the romance and relationships between the main characters and some ladies. And that's kind of the big thing here. Like, there's a lot of cultural development, there's a lot of background and world building stuff happening, and a lot of like relationship development, not just between the main character and his partners, but also between him and the various non-human factions in this, Wild West kind of world, whether it's the dwarves or the beastkin or whatever other factions there are. There's a lot of that world building development. However, what there isn't a lot of is actual advancement in the conflict. The novel description mentions a couple situations that are set up that are poised to increase the tension level in the story, increase the antagonism between him and the other, factions that are aggressive and antagonistic. But there's very little, I should say, relatively little, advancement of that actual conflict of it coming to a head. There's one particular instance, there's a couple smaller instances, but there's one particular instance towards the end of the story, and that's kind of it. And for all the buildup that was happening in the story, I was just kind of expecting personally a little more development on that side. I seriously expected the Church of Apok to try to rain, their heck on the main character and his new temple that he establishes, which isn't a spoiler. It happens. It's talking about book number 1, and also mentioned in the novel description. But that didn't happen. I absolutely recognize that this is a slice of life story, and that things unfolded at their own pacing, and this is already a 459-page book, and if the author had added all those conflict resolutions, this would be like 1,000 pages, which is an entirely another book, and that's probably what's going to end up happening, and that some of those conflicts, I should say, should be popping up more in the next book, and which turns this novel into a lot of setup stuff, which may or may not be satisfying for some readers. Me personally, I thought it was good enough, I should say, that as far as the conflicts go, the world building, the character development, the relationship development, perfectly nice, really well done. And it was fun to see some of the jokes get their comeuppance in smaller ways. And it's on the power side of things, the game mechanic stuff, still developed. It's still there. It's definitely on the lighter side. The main character does advance his power system in getting new powers and using his faith points to get new awards. So there is still some of that, but again, it's on the lighter side. Overall, though, still a good read, especially for people who just like the casual reading of this world and just likes the characters and like the development of those relationships and those abilities and those things in here. This is definitely a relationship building entry into the series. And in the next book, hopefully we'll get some bigger fights and some more conflict heading. But for me, still gets a good score, 7.3 out of 10. That's cashing in Lux Voice book number 2 with a score of 7.3 out of 10. And next up, we have Berserker, a LitRPG urban fantasy adventure, Apocosmos, book number 1, written by Dimitrios. The author told me how to say that last name, and I already forgot my brain. So I'm not going to. Dimitrios, I have to try. Gurkis. So I'm sorry, Dimitrios, and I actually sent in the correct pronunciation, and I forgot to add it to the notes. This is 445 pages, $4.99. It's available on Kindle Unlimited. Here's the author's description. Alex is a game developer, though he'd much rather stream RPG classics or spend time with Louie. That's his adorable corgi. He also hates people, not in a homicidal way, but rather in an extremely antisocial one, unless you hurt Louie. In such an instant, Alex is pulled into the Apocosmos, where our whole world is just a blip in a colorful tapestry of millions of others. A multiverse ruled by a strict system, where Norse, Greek, and Celtic pantheons clash, where dwarves craft, dragons hoard, vampires don't glitter, and a world that is cruel as it is epic. Alex wants none of that, though. He just wants to earn an early retirement somewhere in Spain. There's money to be made in the Apocosmos. Alex will take advantage of the market just like he did in his MMORPG days in what seems like an error-proof plan. But it's a zero-sum game, and some people would do anything to eliminate competition. Full disclosure, I received advance copy for review. I purchased a copy when it became available. Okay. There's some good parts of the story that I really enjoyed, but there's a lot of other stuff that I had issues with, and that fundamentally made this not work for me. The cover art, the opening prologue in the story don't really necessarily match with what I was expecting, basically. From the cover, you would basically, I should say, I had an expectation that there was going to be a lot of fighting, that there's a lot of combat. The main character is a Berserker. They're not known for their, accounting skills. Rather, they're fighting prowess. And from the opening, prologue in this section where the main character is set up almost in this King Conan kind of way of, being this older, amazing Berserker badass in a gladiator ring with other, people around him, oohing and ahhing at his whole list of, accomplishments and saving people. I was expecting, again, more conflict, more fighting, more action, adventure. And that's not what actually happens here. Instead, you get something that's very much urban fantasy with RPG mechanics, or real life RPG system, where the main character, for the most part, is a day trader. He's not crafting himself. He's either outsourcing it, or he has an automated system within this RPG kind of parallel universe where he is essentially speculative marketing, where he's taking materials, having them made into products, and selling them according to his analysis of the trends on a weekly basis, where it's good to buy low and to sell high and making a profit. And that is a little outside of his skill set a little bit as far as it's given to us. But it is an interesting system. I actually really enjoyed the trading system, even though it wasn't something I was expecting. And it was still an enjoyable mechanic. It just didn't really click in with what my expectations are. And I think that part of this trend at working is unreasonable expectations based upon the things that I'm shown or given, or unfulfilled expectations, I should say. And on the story side of things, again, it really is just dual narrative between the future main character and current main character. Future main character is this, again, badass Berserker, and he's supposed to be recounting his life, and at the same time in a gladiator ring, except his life in the present, which is an urban fantasy, is very much feels disconnected from future him, which is in a fantasy setting in a gladiator ring where he's trying to do some uprising at the same time as talking about himself, essentially. From future self him, there's this expectation of conflict or action at some point, and it doesn't really pan out. It's just him talking, or him doing world building, or him doing, explaining things or talking to characters. And it's not till the very, very end of the story where that pays off as far as action goes at all. And so there's this huge swath of the story where it's is the action going to come through now? Nope. And now? Nope. Through a series of, prologues or interludes. And it's just really felt disconnected for me, at least story wise, with the main character in the present section, where he starts up with him being a normal person, gone out for a walk with his dog, and him picking a fight with 5 dudes who stepped on his dog's tail, and having almost winning against him, and then some instance, one of them using some magic spell to bring him into this urban fantasy-esque plot device where he's oh, now you're part of this secret RPG world, and suddenly they can beat him up for some reason, whereas a normal person they couldn't. Which didn't make sense to me on a game mechanic level, but it's a thing, and so he's pushed into this secret world parallel universe that's layered on top of ours, where people go on quests and have RPG mechanical aspects and stats and abilities and skill trees, whatever the case is. And you would think, oh, he's going to go on quests and adventures and do actiony stuff in line with my expectation from the cover art and the novel prologue. Nope. He day trades. And that's really legitimately probably like 70% of the story, where he's just looking at ways of making money to pay off his medical bills and to pay off his home, with an idea of like an early retirement, and the antagonistic force of this unknown seen other trader who's opposing him. And it's not a badly told story. It's just in direct conflict with what I was expecting, which, is what it is. And the few fights that are in the story felt like they didn't belong there. They didn't add anything. They didn't advance anything. And they directly conflicted with the main character who had these different personality types. In one case, one part, he's a gym rat where he exercises and works out every single day to be physically fit. And he has no problem, taking on 5 dudes who step on his dog's tail. But then the next minute, he doesn't want to fight. He doesn't want to advance his power in the RPG system and gaining levels and fighting quests and fighting monsters. Why? Because he doesn't want to take a risk with his dog, even though he absolutely knows on multiple occasions that there are antagonistic forces and levels mean something. And as a gamer, which he's supposed to be a gaming programmer, there should be like a definite awareness that, okay, RPG levels matter. And so with all those background influences conflicting with his actual actions, it felt like the reticence to level was just this thing that was like, oh, he can't level yet because it's not the right point to do his character progression or his arc where he's going to change his mind in power level. And that's what it ended up being. But it definitely felt like that was the case, which was annoying to me because like it didn't match with what was expected from his background. There we go. There's a few of my complaints, I guess. I would have personally, I think, enjoyed the story more if it focused on the most interesting aspects. Like all the Berserker stuff wasn't anything I hadn't seen before. Plenty of that. The trading aspect of it was relatively refreshing, and it was entertaining in its own way, even if it's not action focused. And I would have liked to see that developed more, but instead it twists into like this forced situation where he's for some reason taking on other influence without spoiling things, antagonistic forces, and go in actual combat, which he's not particularly good at, and other characters, other people kind of going in to like save him and make him a success in some way. So he's not really like necessarily winning within his own strength to a degree, which was like kind of a sad, well, not sad, but it's just like a twist that didn't really match what I enjoyed about the story. There are other things that I enjoyed about the story. Character development was nicely done. Characters themselves are well written. I think that's probably the repeated refrain in a lot of the reviews. I like this character, the Dwarf Smith, or I like the Corgi Louie, especially once he starts to talk, which is my favorite character. Or other characters in the story which are like really well done, have good dialogue, or funny and interesting. And so that's a good aspect of the story. Again, there are issues with the main character's personality, background, and his conflicting motivations that just felt like he was, again, restricted for the purpose of a story element. And it didn't feel like some of his responses were probably natural, which again I had just issues with. But overall, the characters are probably a highlight of the story. The game mechanics and story aren't bad, nothing particularly innovative. Lots of item character descriptions, mostly standard RPG stuff. The notifications and item descriptions were probably longer than they needed to be, especially with some of the icons that they had in the version that I got. And remember, I got a slightly earlier version where they took up whole pages, and at some certain points in the novel, the notifications, item descriptions, character descriptions were like multiple pages. So it was like, 5, 6, 7 pages in a row were just nothing but this item or character description text, and it got a little unnecessary. I think a lot of that could have been summarized or just talked about it within the story text itself, of like the main character saying, oh wow, you're super powerful, this item is really cool and it does this ability, instead of like having an actual sheet just to limit some of those info dumpy feeling, item descriptions. So there you go. Overall, though, the story felt disjointed between those two different elements, and the narrative structure, I should say. The action felt forced in every single instance in the story, and the Berserker title felt more like a false flag because there's barely any berserking in either narrative, whether it's future main character or current main character. There's the berserking element really only comes through at the very tail end of the story. So it should be day trader instead of berserker to me as a title. The story is essentially saved from a worse review score for me than a 6 out of 10 because of the good characters, the good dialogue. The corgi Louis is especially interesting and fun for me, and the neat trading system. The neat trading system isn't a bad element. I enjoyed it. It's just, again, conflicted with what I was expecting from the title Berserker, and the Berserker, King Conan kind of aspect of prologue and interludes. So for me, the story didn't work. You might like it better, I guess. And some people have enjoyed it. But for me, because of those elements I mentioned, not getting a good review score, it just doesn't work for me. That's going to be Berserker, a LitRPG urban fantasy adventure, Apocosmos, book number 1, with a score of 6 out of 10. Next up, we have Dungeon of Chance, Even Odds, a dungeon core novel written by Jonathan Brooks. It is 415 pages, $3.99. It's available on Kindle Unlimited. Here's the author's description. In a world dictated by probabilities, Clay was an anomaly. Thousands of heroes protect the land, defending against the periodic incursions by gigantic monsters known as world threats. This was the way it had always been, and Clay Shundwise was perfectly fine with that. Running deliveries from his family's shop in sleepy town of Renton, the young teenager barely even thought about heroes and their role in keeping the world safe. That was, at least until the world came crashing down on him. Newborn into the brand new and unfamiliar form of a dungeon core, Clay struggles through learning about heroes and the dungeons they delve through to get stronger. According to the guy that was trying to help him understand his new life, however, because he was a former hero, Clay should already know most of what he needed to succeed. All of the other finer points regarding the relations between heroes and dungeons, including information about the probabilities and drop rates, should be common knowledge. The problem? Despite wishing that he'd been lucky in his past life, Clay had never been a hero. But now he might be forced to become one, though not quite in the way he ever expected. Actually, it's a really good novel description without spoiling really anything. So good job, novel descriptions are hard. This latest dungeon core story from Jonathan Brooks not only entertains but tries to add some randomness to the subgenre through a well-used gacha type system, which is a supposed to be random feeling like token system. So if you've ever played any kind of card game where you pay with either system or system generated income or money to buy packs of randomized items, whether it's cards or monsters or traps. In this case, that kind of system exists in this story. So the main character uses his dungeon resources, core chips in this case, to purchase monster eggs, and those eggs I forget there's the technical name for it, but they're essentially monster eggs, and they're supposed to give him a random selection of monsters to use in his dungeon. And sometimes those eggs can contain uncommon monsters or rare types, or sometimes traps, or and there are various ways in which the monsters are shown to be extra special, like by a star system. More stars, more powerful monster, more rare monsters, more powerful monsters, of course. And so that element in the story actually added a nice little bit of flair. There's like, oh, this feels different, and as long as it's actually random, I liked it. You could tell sometimes there in the story there was like, oh, the author was tweaking it for a specific story purpose that pans out eventually. But other than that, like, I actually really liked the random feeling, because it felt like, oh, the main character, which is the dungeon core, had to kind of deal with what was handed to him instead of being able to plan out perfectly his dungeon types, his planning, his scheduling, his traps, whatever the case is. He kind of had to deal with what was handed to him and plan his resource builds around taking chances, even at a detriment to himself, to what he was going to be able to do. And I liked that aspect of it. for me at least. And it's not going to work for everybody, but for me, I'm like, oh, I've read enough Dungeon Core stories. I'm like, oh, this feels a little bit different. And that was a positive thing for me, at least. In addition to those like random elements, there's still like really good, just like standard, Dungeon Core stuff where the main character builds a dungeon, has adventures come through. There are new additions to some of the story building mechanics that the author has been tweaking. And every single book that Jonathan Brooks writes in the Dungeon Core genre, he's gotten better. Like I've read, I think everything he's ever written. And I've seen like the growth in his storytelling and his ability to make his Dungeon Core stories more entertaining or more interesting with every single book. And this is another extension on that. He's trying something new, and hopefully it's going to pan out with other readers. For me it did. But overall, his core mechanics are always super strong, and they're integrated into the lore of the world, into the actual being important to this world building. And in this case, I like some of the new things he did, including letting the heroes that come through his dungeons not die permanently. And it's a very interesting way that he's done it. He's thought it well through. And I like the way that he set that up. And it allowed for a very good balance between being okay murdering heroes on a regular basis, and it being like a core system in how the dungeon progresses. So you don't have to like necessarily kill off a character to make the dungeon feel threatening, but at the same time, you don't have to write a bunch of new characters every time you need the dungeon to level up. You can still keep the same core characters. And I liked the way that interacted in the story. It was, from a writing perspective, from a storytelling perspective, I should say, interesting. And from a reader perspective, I like that you got to keep the main characters without necessarily them feeling like they're immortal, like they're protected by plot armor, because they do die. But there's also mechanics set up in the system where they can come back to life, and it's actually an integrated world building part of this world where that's how they train as heroes to fight monsters and to fight the world threats. And so it was all very well balanced, and I liked that aspect of it in particular, and it made it a very enjoyable read. I read this almost in one sitting, and I liked the heck out of it, especially the well-developed ending, which is a nice fulfillment of a lot of the story threads in the story. So for me, I had a good time with it. I really did. Gave it a score 7.8 out of 10, which is a high, really good review for me. But again, I also like Dungeon Core stories. I like Jonathan Brooks' writing, and I liked the new systems that he was willing to try to test out and play with. And I appreciate that risk taking, I should say, or in this case, gotcha type system. So there you go. So for me, it gets score 7.8 out of 10. That's Dungeon of Chance, even odds, with a score of 7.8 out of 10. And next up, we have Live Dungeon, which is going to be a webcomic that I'm reviewing this week. It is 31 chapters currently as of this recording. It is free. There's no English publisher for this novel. It is available as a manga in its original language if you want to go purchase it to support the author, or even the original novels. Here is the webcomic description. An old MMORPG called Live Dungeon. Before the service was terminated, Tayuti Tsutsumi made full use of 5 notebook PCs to clear the game and was invited to a different world. And then Tutsumo was speechless when he saw a live relay of a dungeon captured in a different world. They bulldozed through without any thought of strategy, the misfortune of getting the healer position. Tutsumo reinstated the white mage that had always been his favorite in games and aimed to conquer the dungeon to find the key to his escape from a different world. Okay, so this is essentially a second novel, which I'm saying I'm writing isekai. Transported to a magical fantasy RPG world, where the main character goes to this RPG world, and he essentially sees that the world is different than what he already knew about, like this game-esque world that he had played. In that the people who lived in this world are natives, and they have not really developed the same kind of gamer skills that he's used to, whether it's on how they fight dungeons or monsters, but mostly special in how they treat healers and how their healer role exists in this world. And the main character's big goal is one, find a way home. Great. That's always the ultimate goal. Super not part of the plot. But for him, it's mostly to raise the value of the healer role in this world and through his own particular slightly overpowered abilities and strategies, to increase that healer's respect in this particular world because they're treated poorly. And that's what it is. So there you go. And those are his goals. He feels their healers are treated poorly and underutilized. And a lot of the plot of the story is just changing that perspective. And I actually really enjoyed that change in this kind of novel. Instead of just power leveling to defeat the evil demon lord or saving the world, over the case, it's just, I'm trying to change an institutional system for healers in this case. And I like the well thought out ways the main character did. He's not getting any powers that are particularly overpowered. It's just he's utilizing them in a very intelligent way according to how he's learned how to being an MMO player. I also like the use of tactics in the story, and I mean legitimate like gamer tactics. And a lot of stories will ignore them or just like kind of use them but not actually talk about them in the way that gamers do in like group gaming mechanics. And in this particular instance in the story, there's like a lot of like early detail, but utilizing particular roles and characters and how the healer is the team leader because they can see everything and they also have access to everybody's information and they're almost a group technician in some role respects. And I liked that eventual like growth and explanation to this role and also as a reader. So it was fun to see that tactical aspect explained and exploited in the story. And this is an ongoing story. I in particular like the first arc of it. But it was fun. I enjoyed it. Of the LitRPG web comics I've read, again, this is one that focuses a little more on proper group tactics and the role of a healer, which can be tedious on occasion if you've already familiar with the terms the main character is explaining. But it's overall a good story, and I like that it stuck to its premise throughout the entire sections that I've read. As for me, it gets a score of 7.6 out of 10. That's a live dungeon with a good score of 7.6 out of 10. And next up we have Ian's Picks of the Week. This is a segment of the show where contributor Ian Mitchell, longtime LitRPG community member and reviewer, sends us his reviews of the week and we're sharing them with you. So this week he's actually decided to do reviews for an entire series all at once, and that's going to be the All Trade series. And so we're going to begin with book 1 in the All Trade series, Master of None, written by Shane Walker. He says, a pair of jacks to open. I loved reading this. Yes, I was a little troubled because everything seemed easy for Jack, and often it was almost a stretch of events. At the same time, this worked very well as it kept the story moving at a very fast pace. So leaving out details yielded a fast movement. The LitRPG elements are often unobtrusive and almost seamless. I was confused regarding stat gains for jobs being associated to a job. It made sense later on, and there was a stat for each job at the end. Great reading. Keeping the detail low did get in the way of emotional depth. But the action was great. I had fun reading, but I prefer more variation in pacing and depth of character, and he gives book 1 an 8 out of 10. Book 2 in the series, he says, put the graphic there, business as usual in the All Trade series, and Ian says, Jack expands his business. Okay, well, binging book 2, I'm liking these a lot. Reminds me of a bit of the Irrelevant Jack series. This time we learn a little bit about the world. Also reminds me of some of Michael Chatfield's Emerillia as Jack is getting into all sorts of business ventures. Battles are interesting, a bit more character development and emotional intensity. Well done. I really shouldn't start books late at night. And he gives it a score of 8.5 out of 10. So he's actually increasing his enjoyment of the series as he continues. And the last review he has from the most recent entry in the series, All Trades book number 3, Corporate Warfare. He says, Jack has strong enemies. He hits hard. Every book feels like a level up. Jack's involved with Des now. He's got a solid group. The fights are good with action and danger. The series feels like Emerillia, which is a high compliment in my opinion. I like the interesting quick change class job mechanic. The story is tight with better pacing and variation in intensity and feel. I like real part of the story. Not too heavy, enough to know that the real world matters. Great reading. And he gives it a score of 8.7 out of 10. So as the story is continuing, I think the author has tightened up his storytelling, and Ian has definitely appreciated giving increasingly great review scores. And so he gives us the third book in the series an 8.7 out of 10. So overall, I'm going to say that Ian really appreciated the series and he enjoyed it. So go check it out. I've enjoyed the stories that I've read in that particular series as well. And that ends Ian's Picks of the Week section. And that's it for the show, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks a lot for listening, for watching. We have links in the show notes to Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Patreon, our website, for all the places you can find the show and support us. You can also remember to listen to us as just a strictly audio podcast on Spotify and Audible. You can also watch us on YouTube or on our website for the video version or on Facebook. So plenty of places to catch the show, whether it's a video or an audiobook production. We'll also have links to show notes for a couple places where you can talk to your favorite LitRPG authors, get book recommendations, express opinions, and have authors actually talk back to you. So as far as Facebook groups or Twitter. And of course, if you enjoyed the podcast in any way, shape, or form, you can find all the ways to support us. Keep us free, keep us ad-free at litrpgpodcast.com/support. But again, thank you very much for hanging out with me. And until we can hang out again, remember to go read some LitRPG. Goodbye, everybody, and happy Thanksgiving.